Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we're going to be talking about the Montreal Canadiens trading for Christian Dvorak and how this changes everything about the Montreal Canadiens roster and upcoming season in 2022. Now, the Montreal Canadiens deadline for the Kotkaniemi offer sheet has passed. They did not match and instead end up trading for Christian Dvorak from the Arizona Coyotes, and this means big things, I think, for this next Habs roster and could mean a lot better of a season than we were expecting. We could have had a center core of Suzuki, Evans, Paling, and Paquette, but now with Christian Dvorak, almost everything is changed, and the entire outlook of the team is so much better. But how much does Christian Dvorak truly change for the Montreal Canadiens, and how good will he be as a Hab as well? Watch till the end for all the answers and all the explanation, as well as all the discussion around this trade, and hit that subscribe button if you are new. 60% of the people that are watching are not subscribed. If you like hockey, if you like the Habs or any NHL team, this channel is the place to be. Now, really, ever since the Kotkaniemi offer sheet was confirmed by Carolina, and even a little bit before that, we were always talking about Montreal going after another second-line center, going after a guy that could truly be on that spot. And again, even before the Kotkaniemi was offer sheeted, I was suggesting the potential option of a guy like a Christian Dvorak or even a Tomas Hertl a couple months back as a second-line center that Montreal could really use going into 2022, especially with Phil Danault now with the LA Kings. And since then, we've just seen more confirmation that Montreal needed to go after a second line center. With the offer sheet going for Kotkaniemi to Carolina, there was always the best option for Montreal to just not match the offer and to go get somebody else, and the Montreal Canadiens have done exactly that. Now, the guy that I've been talking about for a while, really the past month for the Montreal Canadiens, is Christian Dvorak. He was in trade rumors quite a bit the last month, but I tried to pinpoint his position in Montreal as a one that I thought could really work out, and there wasn't really too much rumors surrounding Dvorak to Montreal specifically until last week when, of course, the Kotkaniemi situation unfolded. He got the offer sheet from Carolina, and there was always the kind of speculation and kind of the picks by a lot of people that he would end up being just waved off by Montreal. They would not keep him and going on to trade somebody else. Now, Christian Dvorak is the guy that Montreal trades for, and I think he'll be an absolutely great player of the Montreal Canadiens. He might not be on paper an elite player, but I think in terms of fit, he brings so much to the Montreal Canadiens, and it means so much for this next season that he's going to be on the roster, and there's quite a few reasons why that is the case. Now, when it comes to Christian Dvorak in Montreal, I think this is almost the perfect player that they could have gone for the long-term fit and the now as well. Obviously, Tomas Hertl, if we're looking at the best players right now, would be perfect as well for Montreal, but he would have costed a lot more, likely wouldn't have re-signed after this next season, and would just be here for the 1 year with the Montreal Canadiens organization. Instead, with Christian Dvorak, he's going to be here for the next 4 seasons at a pretty cost-controlled cap hit at $4.45 million, and he's a guy that in terms of finishing ability, in terms of defensive ability, is a really solid top 6 center in my opinion, and again, brings a lot of what Montreal doesn't quite have. He's a super consistent, super good leader who also has a lot of great traits in terms of goal scoring, in terms of great IQ plays, one of the smarter players in the Arizona Coyotes, and I think he will bring that on to the Montreal Canadiens system. He just brings a lot of good qualities and a lot of great traits that Montreal doesn't have quite enough of, especially at the center position. I think he'll be a great second-line center behind Nick Suzuki, and will truly be kind of a more of a two-way centerman that Nick Suzuki kind of needs behind him, especially with Phil Danault and how good Phil Danault was for Montreal. To get a guy like Christian Dvorak back isn't the worst thing in the world, and I think for Montreal, over Kotkaniemi is a huge improvement. Now, the thing is, I think Christian Dvorak is an improvement over Kotkaniemi for the now, maybe not for the future if he really pans out in Carolina, but for the now and for Montreal's sake, if they're going to go after another cup, if they want to get back to the big stage, Christian Dvorak, besides Tomas Hertl or Jack Eichel, is pretty much their best option as a second-line center, especially if they kind of want to replace Phil Danault. Obviously, Tomas Hertl will be a great player to have, but he isn't quite like a Phil Danault replacement. Meanwhile, Christian Dvorak can fit that mold, I think, a lot better, and also provide some more scoring touch than Phil Danault had, especially. Might not be as good of a playmaker nor defensive player, but he's just a really well-rounded player that I think brings a lot that Montreal doesn't quite have. But I haven't really talked about, I've been talking about Christian Dvorak specifically a lot, but I haven't quite talked about how much he affects the Montreal Canadiens lineup, and he truly affects it so much. Even if Kotkaniemi were to stay in Montreal, your center core for next season in 2022 would have been Suzuki, Kotkaniemi, Paling or Evans interchangeably, or even Cedric Paquette in there, and it wouldn't have really been ideal. Sure, you can make the bet that Kotkaniemi comes up to that second line center role, but again, we already heard reports of Kotkaniemi not really being happy with the Montreal Canadiens and how he's deployed, how he's developed, and also how he was played in the Stanley Cup final, being healthy scratched in the final 2 games. So it seemed like even with Kotkaniemi, it wasn't going to be nearly ideal, and they'd also have a $6.1 million cap hit that they couldn't trade until after next season. So for me, when I was looking at this situation back when this whole thing was unraveling, I thought because of that, because they couldn't trade him and because it would just be kind of an awkward fit having him back, I thought that just not matching the offer and going for somebody else would have been the best option available. Now at the time, especially with Christian Dvorak, I thought it would have been like a first and maybe like a fourth on top of that. Obviously the deal is a first and a second round pick, which is more than what I was expecting. But at the same time, for Montreal to pay for a top 6 centerman, it doesn't come cheap, and a guy as good of a fit as Christian Dvorak in Montreal also doesn't come really that common either. Especially for Montreal, who Arizona knows what the situation they're in is. Arizona knows how really stressed and strapped by the Canadiens are. But still being able to make this deal done and still being able to make this trade happen, I think is fantastic for Montreal. Even though, yes, it might be an overpay, it's an overpay that for Montreal, they simply needed to make. But just thinking about what the Canadiens' core could have been center-wise instead of what it is now, there is a lot more potential with the now, I think, going into this next season than there was even with Jesperi Kotkaniemi. I don't even want to talk about the center situation without Jesperi Kotkaniemi and without Christian Dvorak, because it would have been disastrous. But with Christian Dvorak, especially for these next 2 or 3 years, I think it's gonna be a definitive upgrade over Jesperi Kotkaniemi and what he can bring. I still think Kotkaniemi could be a really good player and will be a big part of the Canes going forward. I think he'll be pretty good there, but it doesn't seem like he would have fit and would have reached that potential with Montreal. And they take that situation where you basically get a troubling offer sheet against you. They take that situation, use the picks, use a second that probably isn't going to be too useful for them, and exchange it for a second line center that is much better, is much more valuable now, and can provide some great overall fundamental abilities, especially for some of those younger players as well too, and some great leadership on top of it. Really, to me, Montreal turned a terrible situation into lemonade, and honestly, for Marc Bergevin, not a bad job of a week that honestly nobody's really expecting. Nobody was really expecting another offer sheet to happen, but Marc Bergevin saw the situation and really did the best he could, and I think that is the truth. But you can start to tell, especially with the free agency moves like Hoffman and David Savard, and now the trade of Christian Dvorak, the Montreal Canadiens are pretty much in win mode right now. They might not be sacrificing the entire future to win now, but they're definitely making a lot of moves to be a lot more competitive, which is what is needed in this Atlantic division. There's going to be so much competitiveness at the top, and Montreal's playoff spot is by no means guaranteed, and they could be a team that still, even with Dvorak, could miss the playoffs. But I think with that acquisition, it just makes everything about the roster that much more complete. Marc Bergevin adding guys like Mike Hoffman on the wings, David Savard on defense. Really the only thing that he didn't do anything with was centers, and I thought Pia Suter could have been a great addition for them and would have been a center, second line center option, and all these different guys could have been an option, but they went for Christian Dvorak, and they went for a guy who I think as a second line center fits pretty much perfectly. Again, that finishing, that strong defensibility, that consistency, which is another thing that Montreal doesn't have a lot of, but that leadership ability and that calm and coolness is so important, especially in a market like Montreal. I think Christian Dvorak will quickly become a fan favorite, and deservedly so. I think he's going to be great in Montreal, and honestly, this next year, I see him getting above 40 points. I see him being a consistent, solid player that Montreal truly needed, especially in place of Villeneuve. But honestly, with Montreal, I think they're a team that's, although they might not be a bona fide playoff team, I think their chances are so much more strong with Christian Dvorak as their second line center. It is a humongous upgrade over Jesperi Kotkaniemi, at least for the now. But if Montreal's going to be truly wanting to make the playoffs, this was a deal that needed to be made. And for Montreal, especially with Carey Price not going to be in the league for too much longer, you make this trade a little bit more of a shorter term trade. But at the same time, I feel like it was a needed trade that needed to happen if you're Marc Bergevin to make the playoffs this next season. And now I have a lot more hope in this 2022 season, which I think is vastly important to what we see in the future for Montreal. And personally, again, I think this basically means that Montreal is going for it these next few years, trying to make these last few years of Carey Price's career as competitive as humanly possible. Adding Christian Dvorak does that, adding David Savard does that, adding Mike Hoffman does that, and all these deals have now come together to complete a relatively solid offseason. Now, the work is still not done. They could still add a couple of guys, but now the framework has been completed. And for the Montreal Canadiens, that was desperately needed. The Atlantic Division will still be extremely tough, but I think Montreal will end up being a playoff team now this next season in 2022. I think Christian Dvorak will be that much of an upgrade, and again, will be something that changes the whole locker room, something that changes that whole team makeup, and will make the Montreal Canadiens that much more scary and that much more competitive in the Atlantic. They're still not going to be the best team by any means, but they have a shot, and that's a lot more than they would have had with Jesperi Kotkaniemi as their second line center. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Comment down below, what do you think about this Jesperi Kotkaniemi situation and Christian Dvorak trade? Who do you think wins this trade and wins this situation? Carolina, Arizona, Montreal. Let me know all your thoughts. Let me know how you think Montreal's going to do this next season with Christian Dvorak and how you think Christian Dvorak is going to do as well. Make sure you share this video with your friends, get it out there, and click on this card for all of my hockey rankings right in one playlist. My name is Nathan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video or stream. Goodbye.